Hey guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica and I'm your host, and you can follow me on Twitter at @itschesino. This is going to be a special. Euro special. Can I get that out? Oh, and I just want to let you guys know also that I was on time today. So you guys apologize to me. The last couple of days, you guys have been clocking me for not being on time. Today, I'm on time. But yes, this is going to be a Euro special. We're going to be doing our predictions. And you're probably asking, who is we? It's not going to be me and this random person that's not here. It's going to be Alex, the Euro expert. If you guys don't know him, you should follow him on Twitter at EuroExpert_. He is the Euro expert. He says he's not attached to any team. He's a true neutral. I think he's a Chelsea fan, but we'll let it go. But he knows his stuff. So we're going to be doing our predictions, talking a little bit about the group where England, I think, what are they, Group D? And whether they going to come on top of the group? Are they going to lose out? Croatia, can they do something? Can Scotland do something? We'll talk about that. Belgium's golden generation, they have De Bruyne, who is maybe not going to be able to start the tournament, but Romelu Lukaku, Courtois, Tielemans. This is a great team. Hazard, both Hazards. This golden generation needs to get it done, right? So do they have a chance or do they not? And we'll also talk about Jack Grealish and some other things. So this is going to be the Euro special, and I'm really excited for it. I'm going to go ahead and bring in Alex now so we can get started. It's
Alex! That insult at the start. It's fine. I'll let you fight with the people who think I'm a Tottenham fan. We can all war together. You're both wrong.
I swear you're a Chelsea fan, but it's okay. Let everybody know who you are and what do you do and all that kind of stuff before we get started, just in case they haven't seen you on the channel before.
Well, yeah, besides the insult in there, it's a very, very good introduction and background to me. I'm Alex. I'll go by Euro Expert. Please call me Alex. Don't call me Euro Expert if you're messaging me. I find it weird when people message me and say, "Hi, Euro." You can call me Alex. I'm your friend. And try and make sure I'm up to date with everything European football. You can see more of that on Twitter or my YouTube. And today we're going into preview of Euro 2020, which I've been looking at since last October. So I'm very happy Jess has given me a platform to use knowledge which for 95% of the time has been completely wasteful. So I can finally put it to use.
But aren't you happy? Well, not happy, but obviously Euro 2020 is supposed to happen in 2020, but it was postponed because of COVID. But now there are some players that may have not been included in these squads that now we get a chance to look at because the tournament is a year later. Isn't that maybe a good thing for the tournament?
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I remember doing something, seeing the players that would have missed out on the tournament. So I think half of Turkey's squad was really bad. Like Demiral and Soyuncu would have missed it. A couple of England players, and then this time the only real players besides the ones being ruled out recently is like Zaniolo of Italy. So it's a full house, I think.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I think it's obviously you want it to happen when it's supposed to, and it creates some fixture crowding and things like that. But ultimately, we got here, and I think the tournament's going to be really good. There's a lot of interesting players to talk about and some teams that have to get the business done. So I want to start out with England. And the reason why I was kind of alluding to the fact that maybe potentially Scotland could come number one in that group, not because I actually think it's going to happen, but because I was on another show. And when we were predicting, who would come in what position in that group, in Group D, some of the English fans were not confident. They were saying that Scotland may win the group, Croatia may win the group. And I'm just thinking to myself, shouldn't England be really confident based on, the players that they have? Or do they feel like Southgate is going to Southgate this up and maybe they won't come number one in the group? What are your thoughts on that, Alex?
Yeah, it's interesting to hear. So I think with Scotland, I think there's a lot of national, hope, especially if Scottish people think they can do well. And they're a bit set back. Like the two best players are two left backs in your very own Kieran Tierney and Andy Robertson. And in fairness, they've done well to get to Euro 2020. Like they did okay in qualifying. I think they got through during the playoffs. And in their group, it isn't awful. Like you said, England, Croatia, Czech Republic, Scotland. And the top three teams could theoretically go through. So Scotland, if they finish third, could get enough points. And from the England perspective, it is really the perfect group. But you kind of mentioned it there, will Southgate it up? It's an interesting thing because whoever finishes second in this group has got the easy route to the semi-final. I think if you finish second here, the next team you'll face is probably, I think, Turkey or Switzerland or Denmark, one of those ones. Whereas if you finish first, you're going into the side of the draw with like the Portugals, with the France, the Germany. So whoever wins plays second place of Group F. So it's interesting if Southgate messes up, but I don't think he will. I think if it's an easy route to the final, we would. But I think we are going to see England come out strong here. But for the second spot, it'll be interesting. I kind of think Czech Republic, they're actually looking strong. I mean, they've got Thomas Souček and Soufal in. The players will very much know, and a few other West Ham targets because they seem to do all their scouting in the Czech Republic.
Interesting.
And yeah, and it leaves, and then Croatia as well. Like, not dwell too much on them. Their squad has aged, but they're still very good. Their manager, I forget his name, but he said after he got to final World Cup, he says he's the second best manager in the world. So they've got the ego to get to a final. So fair enough to them. And then Scotland. So they're clearly the weakest team on paper. It depends how. I was hearing from a few people with to set it up as well with this tournament. It's so different to league football. You can get away with playing defensive, counter-attacking football and play for set pieces, and you could go far with that. So if Scotland have worked it out, then you never know how far they could go.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think when I look at that group, like when you instantly just kind of look at it without all the context that you gave me right now, you would think England just goes straight through. But it's never really plays out the way it does on paper. Like sometimes things just, there's hiccups and things like that. But even with the context that you just gave me, I still think England is too strong and they should win this group no matter what. And there's a lot of like talk around the players that are going to be key for England. They're talking about Phil Foden in particular. But I just want to highlight Jack Grealish a little bit because he's the type of player that I feel like is so unpredictable and so new and fresh and can give England a little bit of something extra. Do you agree that Jack Grealish can be that key to England to give them something different in this tournament that will give them the edge over some of their competition?
Oh, absolutely. You're spot on to mention him, and right with all the things about how he's fresh and he on the pitch, he's definitely represents something different. And when you put it into numbers, it's even better. The thing about Grealish this season, so when you look at all the leagues around Europe, you tend to get some players, you get two metrics I want to focus on. Obviously, I don't want to go too heavily into stats because it alienates people at times, but really simple. You can look at who's completed the most dribbles into a penalty box and the most passes into a penalty box. So, for example, someone like Toni Kroos, he's really high for passing into the box, which means good vision, picking out the right balls. And then you might look at someone like Adama Traore, really good at dribbling into the box. Grealish, though, in the Premier League, he's top for both. Mm-hmm. And what that means is, in layman's terms, he's probably the most important player for England going into the group stage. Because Croatia, Scotland, and the Czech Republic, all three of those teams are going to sit back against England, put a deep block, and frustrate them. The one man they have, England, the key to unlocking these deep blocks is Jack Grealish. There's no other player better in the Premier League than Grealish at that. So I think if he doesn't play or for any of their games, I'd be extremely worried. Like if he doesn't start against Croatia, I am worried as an England fan. But at the same time, if they play him, it gives England the key to breeze through the group stage and then any other team that wants to sit back against them.
But who comes out though? Because I mean, that's the key, right? Because Southgate tends to, in my opinion, like when I watch him, he tends to rely on players that he trusts and that he's trusted for a while. So that's like your Sterlings, your Rashfords, these types of players. But you have Phil Foden and you have Grealish, two players that are in form and can give you something different that may be better suited to play in and around Kane. You know, you have to supply Kane. That's your bread and butter. So who misses out? Like if you had to choose, you know, you're playing against Croatia, it's your first game in the group stages, you want to make a big impression, boom. who is your front, your the other two players around Harry Kane to start in that front line?
Oh, it's a good question. All right, so Kane and Grealish. I think Grealish has to go in. Like I said, he's the key for at least the group stages. When we go into the knockout stages, you're playing a France. Different question. I think if you're playing Grealish on the left, so I would be tempted to put Sancho in because, like, who doesn't like him? But for England, he's not actually been that good. I think he's got about 4 or 5 goals in like 20 appearances. On paper, he's not the best. You think you could play a Sterling on the right hand side or someone left footed. I mean, England's forwards are almost escaping my mind at the moment. The ideal one would be a Sancho and Grealish, but I think a Sterling starting wouldn't be too bad because at least he offers you something on the counter. And people have said he's had a bad season. He's still got, I think, 17 goals, right? So, he's still doing well enough. And yeah, I think it's definitely Kane and Grealish, and then a battle between Sterling and Sancho. I would go for Sancho, but I think Southgate won't.
But then what happens to Phil Foden?
That's a good question. I think the thing is with Phil Foden, even though he's been great, I don't know if maybe I'm in a bit of a camp. I think we've all got a bit carried away. But I think he is going to be one of the best players in the world. But the claims that he already is, I think that's a lot to say. Like, and it's not to say, some people have said it. Like, you continuously see headlines and well-established channels like Football Daily say he's up there with Mbappe and Haaland. I think he's just slow down a little bit. Remember, he's still 20 years old, and bring him off the bench for this first game against Croatia, and then see how he does in the other ones if England win. Because if he does play well, fair enough, but I don't think you hedge your bets on him.
Yeah, I don't want anybody to come for my neck, so I'm not going to say anything about Phil Foden because if I'm like, oh, he's not there yet, the knives will be out. But
do you want me to do it? Do you want me to do it? I'll do it and get
you say it.
Phil Foden is overrated. You can come at me. You can leave chest. There we go.
Oh my gosh. They're gonna clip that. It's totally fine. Like, it's totally fine. I mean, opinions are opinions, and like for me, if he wasn't the best player in the world right now, like, did we die? Like, he's still like 19, 20 years old. Like, who really cares? But at the same time, I envision Southgate going relatively safe-ish, meaning with your Sterlings and these guys in that first match, and then we'll see how it goes from there. But for you, who wins? That very first match, England versus Croatia, like, who wins that?
I think England will, and I think it'll be the worst game in the world to watch. Like, I think in our heads right now we're hoping for a 4-3-3, and it's probably going to be a 5 at the back. And I think Southgate's vision isn't going to be, Croatia are sitting deep and we'll try and blow them away. It's going to be, if Croatia want to sit deep, we'll sit even deeper. If you want to counter-attack us, we'll counter-attack you. And I think England will win, but it won't be exciting, and it'll be like 1 or 2-0. And I don't think Croatia are going to create too many chances. And they're kind of sly favourites to go out of the group stage, if anything.
Well, good points. Good points. So I still think England are going to win the group, though. They'll be fine. But let's move on a little bit. I do want to talk about who the true favorites of this tournament is, because you have one team that is the reigning World Cup champions or World Cup winners, and then you have the defending Euro champions in Portugal. So they're both kind of defending something in a way, like defending the fact that they're the best team, right? But when I watched Portugal play the other day against Israel, I watched that team and I'm like, the depth is very similar. Like, I know people think like France has like 2 teams that they can put out there, but Portugal kind of do as well. They have a lot of depth as well, especially in the forward positions and in their fullbacks and things like that. And they looked super fluid against Israel. They were just pinging the ball around. They looked so confident. And I'm thinking to myself, like, my mind instantly switched from France being the favorites to me to Portugal. I think when you have somebody like Cristiano Ronaldo in your side, you kind of have something there in a true winner, even though France have that too. And it's just something about that Portugal team where I think they have it. It's just something there that they have it as well. But for you, is it France? Is it Portugal? Or is it somebody else?
You've been describing a debate that's been going on in my head for the past 6 months. with Port, let's give a bit of background to Portugal. So yes, they did win Euro 2016, but let's not forget that they scored 5 or 6 goals in their 7 games of that tournament, and the manager Fernando Santos is still in charge. I think in the last 11 World Cup and Euro 2016 games, Portugal have scored 12 goals. Very defensive. They've got a lot of players, but in a similar way to England, but if not even more defensive, they don't use them. So going into this tournament, even though Portugal looks strong, I think the Portuguese fans and some analysts I've spoken to, they've said that if Portugal don't get to like the semi-finals, their manager's gone, but they're actually kind of lost patience with him. So the hopes aren't really that high going into it. With France is a completely different thing in terms of every time you talk about Euro 2020, and every time you look at the teams on paper, you think maybe England can go forward, and maybe Italy can go forward. And you look at the French squad, you think, okay, so France are going to win it then. But you know when you say something over and over and over and over, and you think, oh, it's a fact, and then it gets proved wrong. It's kind of where I'm at with France. I'm starting to get a bit shaky over them for no reason. I should say that. On paper, they should win. They've got managers won the World Cup, and their squad is insane. And I guess an interesting element to touch on, like with France, before I say who I think will win, even if they do win this, one thing to look forward to the future is it's still relevant to Euro 2020, but it's interesting nonetheless. One thing to look forward to the future is the depth that they're losing, because with this wall that we keep talking about, this wall of talent, the depth, when you've got two Mendy's, it's two Mendy's and two Hernandez's and Luca Digne fighting over the same left back spot, it means there's another very talented left back who's not going to come through for France and choose a different nation. So Laporte's chosen Spain. He's playing for them this tournament. You've looked at the Man United youngster Hannibal Medjabal. He's picked, I think it was Morocco. He's chosen to play for them. You've had the PSG centre-back Abdou Diallo choose Senegal. Lots of these players are looking at that French team and going, I'm never going to play for that team. I'm going to pick another nation. And so they're slowly losing their depth. But for the short term, for just this tournament, I'm still have to back France. But Portugal, you're very right to point out, I think they're second favourites.
Yeah, for sure. And I always think about the fact that, like, we always pick these favorites, and sometimes they capitulate under, the pressure. And I know that France has all the right people in place to not do that. But I'm going to go with Portugal. I know what I saw. I know what I saw. I saw it the other day, and I thought, I think they can do it. I really do think they can do it. And maybe it's just, I want to pick somebody that's a little bit not as hyped, just that level under, It's just, it's like they're running away with it already. But I want to give somebody else a chance. And I mean, you do have a good chance when you have Bruno Fernandes in your team, when you have Ruben Diaz, when you have Cristiano Ronaldo, Jota, Bernardo Silva, like the list goes on and on and on and on and on. So you guys can let us know in the chat box who your favorites are for the tournament. And we can talk a little bit about, before we get into Belgium. Actually, let's get into them now. Let's just go ahead and get them out of the way. This is their golden generation. It really, really is. Like, I don't really know if they have the same level of talent coming through behind this group. But when you have Kevin De Bruyne, Romelu Lukaku, Courtois, Tielemans, when you have all these guys, Hazard, you got to win something with this group. And it just feels like this is the last time that they can do something about it. What are your thoughts on Belgium and their opportunity to win this tournament? We're talking France, we're talking Portugal, but nobody's really talking about Belgium, and that's a little bit worrisome to me.
That's the thing. I think there's two groups with Belgium. There's two people who think they're dark horses, and there's my group who thinks this is going to be another disappointment in some ways. So this will be interesting. I think you're going to offer some good counters to this. For me, I think on paper, definitely right. They've not been talked about in some ways. And interestingly, actually, there's a very popular predictor thing that's going on at the moment. It's on the Telegraph's website where you go through Euro 2020, you pick every team that wins, and at the end it shows you what other people voted for to win. And top was France, second was England, which I think bit biased, but then third was Belgium. So they're clearly, lots of people are still looking at them thinking they're very strong. I said De Bruyne, Lukaku, who's in a different body at the moment. He's been fantastic for Inter Milan. And I think in the groups, the qualifying for Euro 2020, sorry. Belgium scored, I think it was 20 plus goals in 10 games. They were on fire, and England halted them as like a 2-year unbeaten streak a few months ago. But still, if Belgium get Lukaku injured, which is possible because Griezmann's could be ruled out for the first game just today. He got injured in training. If Lukaku gets injured, the backup is Batshuayi or Benteke. In defence, you've got Vermaelen and Dedrick Boyata. At left wing back, you've got Nasser Chadli, and he might not even be a backup. He could genuinely start.
Yeah.
So there's some worrying elements, and it all goes back to the manager, Roberto Martinez, who I think he's very much like Marmite. If you rate Martinez, you're rating Belgium, and you think they can go far. If you're less unsure on Martinez, which I kind of am, I sort of think they could go to the quarterfinals maybe. But this sort of guess well, they've got a tough route. And I think, in all likelihood, if they win their group and Italy win theirs, they'll probably face each other in the quarterfinals. And for me, Italy are the real dark horses. I think Italy could take over. I think if Italy play Belgium, Italy the team to back. Because a nice little fact about them, if you're doing any bets for Euro 2020, Italy haven't lost, I believe, since 2018. So
crazy unbeaten, yeah.
Yeah, 3 years. So Belgium, if you disagree with me, back them. But if you're thinking Italy, back Italy.
Wow, that's so interesting because, I mean, some big teams are going to go down. Like, you know what I mean? There's so much talent, and you have your France and your Portugal, and you have like that next level under. People aren't really talking about Italy until now. I think people had to look at their, who they had on the team, and then it was like, oh, they actually are good. Wow. Yeah, I don't really think that they're dark horses because they have too many world-class good players that play on top level teams. Like, I think we just forgot. I think we just forgot about them. But ultimately, they're going to be a good team. But this is kind of why I talk about Belgium, because Belgium could inevitably end up being, without the accolades that Germany got, like, so Germany won with their golden generation, and now they're clearly in some sort of in-between phase. Belgium, to me, is pretty much on the precipice of that. That's going to be them in the next couple of years. So when you look at Germany, although they have top-level talent, you can tell that they're teetering in between the old and the new. I mean, they had to go back and get Mats Hummels and Mueller. And for me, I thought that was a huge mistake by Lowe anyway, to remove players that still play at the high level, that have experience and have won things, and to get rid of them and then try to bringing them back. It's kind of like, wow, you really do need to go. But at the same time, I watched them play the other day, and I thought they look good. Like they might be able to get that third place spot and continue to go on. But what are your thoughts on Germany and their real chances of doing something in this tournament with such a squad that's kind of like in between generations?
See, it's kind of the opposite of France in the sense of, with France, I've backed them and backed them and backed them to win. The Germany, I'm backing them to fall apart in some senses, because I haven't caught their recent wins. I've only caught their recent losses, i.e. 6-0 to Spain and 2-1 to North Macedonia, which both extremely worried me. And yeah, you're right to bring up the Hummels and Muller thing. So yeah, right after 2018, the term I like is that Lowe forcefully retired them, which is basically what he did. He just said, get out of my team. And now he's come back and said, yeah, no, please come back. But you're right, they've got young and old players there. But again, it's similar to Martinez. You wonder what he's going to do with them, because he might play Dortmund centre-back Ginter right back, which would be a typical Lowe thing to do, like we did with Howardess. He played him at right back, or Mustafi at times. And then you wonder what he'll do with this lineup. And I do think talent-wise, maybe they've been underestimated, because everyone's focusing on the manager. We all think, oh my God, they're so bad, especially after 2018, where they fell apart in the group stages. They were thinking they're so bad, they're going to fall apart. And we're forgetting how good their players are that could just drag them out of it. But at the same time, you have to think, what can they do with Lowe at the moment? A manager who's announced he's leaving, and he's not exactly on a hot streak. He's going to have to pull something absolutely incredible out to do well. And then you're right, he could still easily get to the knockout stages. I mean, we spoke about Portugal. They could be overly defensive. Germany could leapfrog them if they win 2 games. But it depends how far they go from there. I'm not too sure, to be fair.
It's so crazy because I just think like they need a focal point. When I watched them play the other day, I'm thinking Mueller, as good as he is, he's not a true center forward to me in that way. And they need somebody to be crossing to or something. Like the best German teams, in my opinion, have always had a really big focal point, and they don't have that right now. So they just look a little bit off. But at the same time, I think they can galvanize just enough to maybe upset somebody. Because let's not shirk them off. Like Gnabry, Mueller, Havertz, these are good players, so they can do something. Cruz, Kimmich, like some of them still play on like the best teams in the world. I actually have them second in their group because I think one of France or Portugal is going to do something stupid and end up third. I really, really do. I think there's just too much hype over both of those teams. Somebody's going to mess up. So we'll see who that is. But I think Germany will come second in that group, But
Yeah.
they definitely need a focal point. And
Yeah,
a new coach.
you're right to say, someone in the comments said Ginter moved to Dortmund, and that was wrong. He's at Gladbach, but same thing. But the thing you said
Pretty
about
much.
Portugal, Portugal and France, that is one thing, because I touched on, Portugal being defensive. I think it is likely one of them does something stupid, especially with France, because like I touched on the squad depth thing. But imagine you're going into one of the biggest things of your life, and not only does everyone in the world think you will win, but they expect you to. Like, it's almost guaranteed fact.
Exactly.
So it's just like with Deschamps and France, there's so much pressure on him that even if they don't get to the final, it's probably going to be looked at as a failure. So it depends how strong these players are. If that gets to them, then it's not going to be great.
For sure. And I know we had like a short agenda, but like now things are coming up, and I'm like, okay, yeah, we kind of need to talk about this a little bit too. So before we just do kind of like a rapid round of like best, like winner scores, all that kind of stuff, we have to touch on Spain and we have to touch on the Netherlands, because these are two big nations that look stale to me.
Yes.
Stale is the word that comes to mind for me. Well, actually, let me put it this way. Not stale, but Spain are in the middle of transition as well. And I think they have good young players. But again, you're lacking focal point. You're lacking a striker. And you have the older players mixed with the new. And there's a gap there. But still, nevertheless, they're a pretty strong team. I want to look at their Spain. Let's see. Spain, Sweden, Poland, Slovakia, they should walk this group, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, with Spain, I miscaught a little bit of there because two dogs decided to have a fight. But
nice.
I was agreeing with you until you mentioned Spain. With Spain, they're also another team on the similar vein to Italy. I think could do well, maybe a bit less, because if you want to hear a fun story about Spain, it'd be funny if you actually said it while the earphones were out. But Spain were playing the other day, and Morata was up front. And much like he was at Chelsea, he wasn't exactly on goal scoring form, missing a few chances. And his own fans, the Spanish fans, apparently started chanting. Translated, they apparently just started chanting at him, "Morata, Morata, you're so bad," which isn't, the most confidence-fulfilling thing that you could chant at your main striker. So with Spain, they might have a bit of a problem up front, but overall, I think they actually have got a good team. Like Pau Torres, and I think Laporte's the game changer. With Laporte, all of a sudden, that defense looks great. And then midfield as well, you've got Thiago in there, you've got Fabian. I think with Spain in their group, I think I caught you at the end, you're saying they should walk it. I think they should. I don't think Poland will as well as people think. Slovakia, I'm not too sure on either. So I think they can go through on that group. Netherlands, though. Oh, that's a different story. Now, Netherlands, they should go through. Despite Ukraine in their group being on pretty interesting form, they've under Andrei Shevchenko, I think really changed things around. In qualifying, I think they topped their group. It might have been ahead of Portugal, I'm not too sure. It was ahead of one of the big hitters. So Ukraine are a team that could cause Netherlands trouble. But the thing is, it was well put the other day. If the Netherlands had kept Ronald Koeman, right, who was in charge last year, we have a totally different conversation. But under Frank de Boer was appointed in mid-September. They've played 11, won 5, lost 4, drawn 2, which
Not good.
is, yeah, in the last 11 games, they've conceded 11 goals. Their defense is appalling, and that's without Van Dijk now.
Right.
And I think the one thing about the Netherlands is they've got a player who could drag them through. Unlike Spain up front, Memphis Depay in his last 12 competitive games, he scored 14 goals. So it might be the other way around, but he's on form, and he's the one man you should like who could drag him through. Whether he's on penalties, free kicks, wherever. Then Depay is the sort of man under De Boer, he's actually shown, yeah, he can do something here. But with the Netherlands, they've got the easy route. If they win their group, I think they'll go into the easy part of the draw, where, like I said, they could play a team like Turkey, Denmark in the quarterfinals, then get to the semis and probably play maybe Spain or England or Portugal. So it's a better, better route, but they're ready to capitulate. I think that's the right way to put it.
I mean, so much talent. If you just look at the list, you're like, this is a good team, but they still seem disappointing to me a little bit. And obviously without Virgil van Dijk, that's difficult. And is De Ligt having some injury issues as well? I don't think he's 100% either. And so I think I heard something about that too. So defensively, they look a little bit shaky. But I just want to touch on one player. I know it's not really Euros based, but it kind of is. Donny van der Beek. Like,
oh yeah,
out for the Euros and had a horrendous season. I mean, a nothing season at Manchester United because he didn't play. What are your thoughts on that whole thing? Like, it's not like Manchester United is not playing with Fred and McTominay in midfield, but he couldn't get into that side. Agents speaking out about things, and now not even getting a chance to like really show himself if he wanted to have a move with a long-term injury. What are your thoughts on Donny van der Beek missing out on this really important tournament?
Yeah, I couldn't feel worse for him. I think it's been an absolute mess. And he probably wouldn't have had this injury had he been playing at United and been match fit, been sharp. Like, I don't know the details of the injury, but unless it was something like a head one or something, I imagine if his body had been a bit more conditioned, this might not have happened. I think, as someone who kind of liked Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I think this is a big block on his CV. Whether you wanted him or not, you can't just exile a 23-year-old who clearly has a lot of talent. And sure, you can't make him work in Bruno's position, make him work together, do something about that. Yeah, I think it's been an absolute mess for De Beek. Hopefully he does get things fixed for himself, but it's a big miss for the Netherlands and him.
Yeah, for sure. So you guys in the chat box, make sure that you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel and just stay interactive because we're going to do some quick fire, have a little bit of conversation, but ultimately I just want to get your quick answers on just a couple of these questions. So top scorer, Golden Boot in this tournament, who do you think it's going to be?
Kane or Mbappe?
Kane or Mbappe? Yeah, those are good choices. So not Cristiano Ronaldo.
Oh, no, not Ronaldo. I mean, not including yesterday, because I looked at a stat before the game started. I think Ronaldo has scored. He's scored 3 goals in his last 9 games. So he's not the best record for Portugal. I mean, if you back him as a big game player, maybe, but with Portugal being so defensive, I'm not so sure on Ronaldo.
Yeah, for sure. No Lukaku?
Lukaku's the side one. I think the only reason I haven't got him in is just because I think Belgium won't score too many goals. So they're playing the similar formation to England. Although they're a bit more attacking, I'm not too sure, and I don't think they'll go as far. Whereas with Kane, I feel like England are going to rack up goals in some part of their group, like either against Scotland or Czech Republic, and I think Kane will be on the end of everything, like penalties, free kicks. So I back him, and Mbappe just because I think France go all the way and he'll play every game.
For sure. What about your breakout star of the tournament? Do you have any temperature on that?
Yeah. Zinchenko.
For
Because
the Ukraine.
yeah,
Yeah.
because mainly
I
because
actually rate him. I actually rate him. I think he's a very
it,
good player.
if you like him, it'll be a good talk. You should watch their games because to keep it short, obviously we've seen in the last couple of years him parked at left back. For the Ukraine, he's the captain and he
And
plays
he
in
plays
midfield.
midfield.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so you actually get to see him like be what he wants to be. So he has performed well, and just like a background thing, last year he was playing against Germany, made an error, and he got a lot of death threats from his own fans, and as a response, Shevchenko made him the captain as a
Mm.
kind of back against that, and Ukraine won the next couple of games. So Zinchenko's going into this tournament with something to prove, and not just skill wise, but also off the pitch.
Mm. I think my breakout star is going to be, I was gonna say an obvious one, like maybe like a Phil Foden or something like that. I think it will for England. If you just talk about isolated, I think it's going to be Jack Grealish. I just think it
Mm.
is. Like I think he's going to be the one that makes the difference. But for the tournament, I think it might be Kai Havertz. Just watching him
Ooh.
play for Germany, I thought he's their chance. He was pretty poor for Chelsea in the beginning, but although obviously I'm not a Chelsea fan, I do think that you have to give people a chance to adapt. I think he had some COVID issues, but then he came into form at the very end in the most important part of their season. And then he looked really confident for Germany when they played the other day. And I think that he's just hitting the right amount of stride to pull them through. So I'm gonna make him my breakout star for for this tournament. I think I may
You
change.
think?
I may change tomorrow, but I think I'm gonna go with him. Who's going to be your biggest disappointment? Who do you think the biggest disappointment in terms of a team that maybe has high expectations is going to be?
um, in terms of team, I think, and I'm going to back what I kind of said earlier. I might go with Portugal. I think was well, like the fact we're having the conversations, logical conversations that they could get to the final, they could win it, and I think they. I think even if they get to the semis, I think they'll do it in a fashion we're not all quite happy with. So I think they could be a big disappointment.
I mean, you're choosing my team to win it as this team that's going to be the biggest disappointment.
One
so
of us will be right.
so one person will be right. Or I mean, you never really know. They could get to the final and bomb, and to me, that still would be probably okay. Get to the final at least. My biggest disappointment is going to be. I think it's going to be England. I do. I think they'll get. Something tells me Southgate is going to Southgate it up, and I think they have an opportunity to go far, but I don't think they'll make it because they're just going to bottle. I just have this weird feeling that they're just going to bottle. It's like they keep putting the pressure, this golden generation, it's going to be this, it's going to be that. I think Southgate will Southgate it up. And I think with all the hype around this group of players, I feel like they'll fall short and people will be really disappointed because they should do a lot better. But if I was Southgate, I would just let him know that if he wants to win games with England and he wants to do a good job, just play Bukayo Saka. Like, don't play games. Just play him in every single game, and I promise you, you would win. You will win. No, I'm just joking. But
It's a bit of
still,
method. I think I've got a method now with England going into any tournament. It's think the worst and go one step better. So my worst is they get through the groups and go out in the round of 16. And I think that's because, like you said, Southgate, he's going to Southgate it up. He's going to do all these stupid things. And I think, you know what? You got to go one step further, not too far. I think they'll get to the quarterfinals and then Southgate. I reckon they'll beat a Port. Like in my little prediction, I think they'll beat the second team in Group F, which for me was Portugal. They'll get through that, then they'll play Spain and get wiped out, and then we'll still have the conversations of Southgate needs to change and everything, but it'll be a little less disappointing than we all thought it would be.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I have them as my disappointment, but I could easily be wrong. They could do better, but yeah, they too much talent, too much expectation, not enough good coaching. It's a recipe for disaster. But yeah, so those are our predictions. You said, oh, actually, last but before we go, who do you think's going to win it again? You think it's going to be France? Are you sure? Final answer? Final
Yeah.
answer, you're not going to come to the dark side and say Portugal?
I'm tempted. I'm tempted. You put the pressure on, and my brain starts to go, "Oh, Italy have got a good team," but yeah, I have to be. I'm going boring. I'm going boring. I'm back in France. Back in France. Just because I know, I have to back my own video, and I have to back the fact that if I go fun and go Italy now and France win it, then I missed an opportunity to be right. So I'm going France.
Okay, for sure. And player of the tournament? You want to do that one
Uh,
too? Yeah, let's do that one
yeah.
too.
Oh, that'd be. Oh, yeah. Actually, yeah. So they're kind of cheating it. Um, Out and Out Gunners podcast has come very close to my selection. I think if France get to the final or win, regardless of who played the best, regardless if someone scores 1,000 goals, Kante will be handed player of the tournament because I think he'll play every game, and at the moment the Kante train is high, and I think he'll if France gets to the final or win it, he'll be the one everyone goes to. Yeah, give it to Kante. He's been the best player, and then if he does that by the end of the year, when the players have to vote for the Ballon d'Or, everyone loves N'Golo Kante. We'll give it to him.
You're a Chelsea fan. It's clear to me now. It's very clear. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, that's very true. Conte is just one of those players. He's like magnetic. Everybody loves him. He's such a really good player. I mean, it was just like a year ago or so that people were saying that he was finished just because he wasn't really playing under Lampard. But we all know that it was more
I wish he
Lampard.
went to Arsenal. That would have been fun.
Let's not have this conversation, Alex. Let's just not do it. It's opening up a can of worms. But for sure, I guess my player of the tournament, unfortunately, because of club reasons, I don't want to say this, but my player of the tournament is going to be Bruno Fernandes when they win the Euros. I think he's going to be
Oh,
integral for their whole thing. I think that he played very well for them the other day. He's the key to Cristiano Ronaldo. He's the key to everything kind of working for that team. He's a leader. So I think it's going to be Bruno Fernandes because I really think Portugal is going to go all the way. I like the team. I think they're good. But that doesn't mean that I like Manchester United. You guys know I can't stand them, but Bruno Fernandes is a class player. So there's that. But yeah, you guys, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to everything that Alex has going on at Euro Expert and all that kind of stuff. He knows his stuff. And do you have like a TikTok or something? Like I saw a really cool video the other day and I retweeted it of you doing like a fact from every single one of your football books. That was so good. Like I would have never been able to do that. How hard
uh,
was it? How many takes did that take?
oh my god! It took like 30 takes. That was the most stress. The video was 60 seconds long. The clip was like 20 minutes. Carried on sitting over and over and over. But yeah, I do actually have a TikTok. First person to bring it up. Yeah, at Euro Expert. As a if anyone is in the comments and wondering how can I do content creation or anything like that, TikTok's the best. I mean, I uploaded a video yesterday and it's on 130,000 views already. It's insane place. Try TikTok.
Oh my gosh, I need to get on that. I just feel a little bit like so conscious about it. I'm just like, I don't
Yeah,
know if
yeah.
I can do it.
I literally, I've never downloaded the app in my life, and then someone DM me on Twitter and said, "Just try it. You'll like it." I did it with zero promotion 4 weeks ago. Never looked back. Just do it.
All right, first video incoming, maybe like next week or something. But you guys make sure that you follow Alex on all of his social platforms and all that kind of stuff, and make sure that you subscribe to the channel. I'll be back at 10 p.m. UK time to talk new transfer targets for Arsenal. We've been linked with so many more new players, so we'll talk about that. And so I'll see you guys then. I'll see you guys on the next one, and bye, guys.